Yes, sir.
Shit, I'm deaf.
Every day, I share another story from the Golden Age and the moments that shaped an unforgettable era. If you'd like to keep these memories alive with me, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means a lot. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. Back in the mid-1980s, Hollywood had two rising stars who felt like they came from the same universe. They both had that warm, friendly vibe, that chill, guy-next-door charm, and the kind of easy energy that made people instantly root for them. On screen, those names were Tom Hanks and Steve Guttenberg, two actors who seemed built for long-term success. Today, one of them is considered a legend, holding 2 Oscars and a reputation that never fades. The other, he practically disappeared from big studio films, almost like he slipped out a side door nobody noticed. But here's the wild part. In the early 90s, they were running on the same track with the same shine, the same chances, the same potential. Then came one moment, one decision, one line Steve Guttenberg refused to cross. And everything shifted. This is the story of how that single choice redirected his whole career. Fast and permanent. Steve Guttenberg came up on Long Island, where he caught the acting itch as a teenager, even though he didn't think he naturally stood out. He once admitted that there were much more charismatic guys than me, and he'd often end up in supporting roles during school plays, learning the game from the sidelines. He did score a small part in an off-Broadway production of The Lion in Winter, and he spent a summer at Juilliard studying with the legendary John Houseman. But even then, he'd shrug and say things like, "I guess it's just luck that you get chosen." That word, luck, would follow him for years. Standing behind him at every step was his father, Stanley, a former Army Ranger from the 82nd Airborne and a New York City police officer. On paper, Stanley sounded like the kind of dad who could scare a room into silence, but he wasn't that at all. Guttenberg explained that his grandfather had been cold, distant, not the hugging type, and because of that, his father became the complete opposite. Stanley was present, hands-on, and always there at the end of the day, instead of running around with the guys. So, when 17-year-old Steve said he wanted to move to Los Angeles and chase acting, he braced himself for a fight. Instead, the next morning, his dad sat at the edge of his bed and calmly told him, "Good choice, and let's see what happens next." That's the excitement of life. What's next? That kind of support hits different. It stays with you. In 1976, right after high school, Steve packed up and headed to Los Angeles with $300, some salami from his mom, and his dad's old briefcase. His parents gave him 2 weeks to land work, and somehow he pulled it off. Within those 2 weeks, he booked a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial, standing right next to Colonel Sanders himself. That alone would have been a huge win, but Steve wasn't the type to slow down. He slipped onto studio lots at Paramount, Universal, 21st Century Fox. All of them. This was long before computers and cell phones, so the only thing stopping him was a guard with a landline phone. Steve would punch a blank time card like he belonged there and stroll right in like it was no big deal. Once inside, he'd cold call agents and producers, pitching himself for anything he could get. It was bold, it was risky, and it actually worked. Bit by bit, he started landing roles, like the 1977 TV movie Something for Joey, then the lead in The Chicken Chronicles, a high school comedy that didn't do great, but still kept him on the radar. He kept hustling, kept grinding, and eventually picked up an agent who believed in him. Then one day, out of nowhere, his agent called with a role that would flip his world upside down, The Boys from Brazil, based on the Ira Levin bestseller. Suddenly, at just 20 years old, Steve Guttenberg found himself acting opposite absolute giants, Laurence Olivier, Gregory Peck, and James Mason. About that experience, he said something he never forgot. "I always find the more successful the actor, the nicer they are." He always said that the more powerful the actor, the sweeter they usually were. And working with those legends only proved it. He called them monsters, but in the best way, because they treated him with total respect. During those early years, Steve Guttenberg wasn't just building credits. He was building a whole mindset about how he wanted to work in Hollywood. Then 1982 hit with a major shift. Barry Levinson's Diner came along with a stacked cast. Mickey Rourke, Daniel Stern, Kevin Bacon, all young, sharp, and ready to blow up. Guttenberg won the role of Eddie Simmons by opening up about his own long-distance relationship, and that honesty gave Eddie a real, raw vibe. He wasn't just the goofy guy anymore. He became this mix of sweet, clever, and anxious, and it felt authentic on screen. But the studio almost buried the whole movie until Levinson secretly showed it to famed critic Pauline Kael. She loved it, and her support pushed the film back into the spotlight. Guttenberg later called it one of those rare lucky moments when a single critic could change a movie's entire future. And she did. By 1983, he stepped into The Day After, a heavy ABC drama about nuclear war that over 100 million people watched, including President Reagan. That movie sparked national debates, and it proved that Steve Guttenberg wasn't just a comedy guy. He could handle dramatic, serious material when the moment called for it. Then came 1984, and everything went wild. Guttenberg wanted to work with Ron Howard on Splash, but the role went to Tom Hanks. Meanwhile, the producers of Police Academy had wanted Hanks for their lead, but the part ended up with Guttenberg instead. Suddenly, he became the face of this wild R-rated comedy about misfits joining the police force, with Michael Winslow making insane sound effects, the intense Tackleberry, and the gentle Giant Hightower. At the center of all this chaos was Guttenberg's Carrie Mahoney, a street-smart troublemaker who gets forced into the academy as an alternative to jail. He played the slightly normal guy surrounded by madness, bringing charm and a bold, rule-bending spirit that audiences connected with instantly. Critics hated the movie with passion. Roger Ebert even hit it with 0 stars, calling it spectacularly awful. But audiences showed up in massive numbers, including people who still say it's one of their all-time favorite comedies. Police Academy became the 6th highest-grossing film of 1984, kicking off a mega franchise. Guttenberg even turned down the role of Venkman in Ghostbusters to do Police Academy, something fans still talk about. He returned for Police Academy 2, 3, and 4, becoming the face of the whole series before stepping away at the right moment so he wouldn't get locked into playing Mahoney forever. But 1985 brought something totally different, and easily one of his strongest films. Ron Howard's Cocoon was a serious, emotional sci-fi drama about seniors in a Florida retirement community who discover a mysterious pool that restores their youth thanks to hidden alien cocoons. Guttenberg played a charter boat captain who stumbles into this wild situation and falls for an alien named Kitty, played by Tanny Welch. This time, he wasn't surrounded by rising stars. He was standing next to Hollywood royalty: Donna Meche, Wilford Brimley, Hume Cronin, Jessica Tandy, Maureen Stapleton. These weren't just veteran actors, and they were absolute legends. And Guttenberg held his own, bringing gentleness, humor, and heart to a story about life, aging, love, and hope. Cocoon became a major hit, earning over $85 million and winning 2 Oscars, a huge moment in his career. The very next year, 1986, he dropped another classic, Short Circuit. And with that movie, Guttenberg became a hero to a whole generation of kids and families. He played Newton Crosby, a robotics engineer whose military creation, number 5, gets struck by lightning and becomes fully self-aware. Newton wasn't some cold scientist. Guttenberg played him with pure heart and warm, nerdy charm. Number 5 learned about life by watching The Three Stooges, rooting for people and trying to understand the world, which gave the whole film a sweet, funny soul. The line, "Number 5 is alive," turned into a major catchphrase, and kids everywhere wanted their own Johnny 5 toy. And at the center of the whole thing was Guttenberg, playing this brilliant, kind engineer who just wanted to create something that helped the world instead of destroying it. Short Circuit pulled in over $40 million and became a cable TV classic, running non-stop through the late 80s and 90s and reaching millions of households. Guttenberg was officially everywhere. Comedies, dramas, sci-fi hits, and he showed he could hold his own in any lane Hollywood put him in. Steve Guttenberg wasn't just another movie star. He was woven into people's childhood memories. But 1987 wasn't just big for him. It was the absolute height of his fame. First up came The Bedroom Window, a sleek, stylish thriller with real Hitchcock energy, directed by Curtis Hanson. Guttenberg played Terry Lambert, a man who sees a crime from his lover's window and suddenly finds himself trapped in a twisting maze of secrets, danger, and obsession. This wasn't the goofy guy from the comedies. This was a darker, sharper version of him that nobody expected. Fans still call it his most underrated performance, and they're right on the money. For once, Hollywood let him show depth, intensity, and real dramatic power, something studios never fully tapped into again. Then the phenomenon hit, 3 Men and a Baby. Starring alongside Tom Selleck and Ted Danson, Guttenberg played Michael Kellum, one of three carefree bachelors in New York whose lives flip upside down when a baby gets left at their door. The movie became a masterclass in awkward, fish-out-of-water comedy. Watching these three polished city guys try to warm bottles, change diapers, and soothe a crying infant, all while juggling work and dating, was pure chaos in the best way. The chemistry between the three leads was electric. Selleck brought smooth authority, Danson brought loud, anxious energy, and Guttenberg delivered the heart, the steady rhythm that kept the group grounded. The film was sweet without crossing into corny territory and funny without leaning on crudeness. It hit a perfect note that audiences loved from coast to coast. Three Men and a Baby became the highest-grossing film of 1987, pulling in more than $167 million in the U.S. It even beat heavy hitters like Fatal Attraction, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Lethal Weapon, and RoboCop. It wasn't just a movie, it turned into a cultural wave. People quoted it, talked about it at work, and rewatched it non-stop. Guttenberg was officially a major Hollywood name. He came back for the 1990 sequel, Three Men and a Little Lady. Even though it didn't hit the same legendary status as the original, it still pulled in strong numbers and kept the trio's charm alive. Then, 1988 brought High Spirits, a supernatural comedy set inside a supposedly haunted Irish castle. Guttenberg played Jack Crawford, an American tourist who discovers that the ghosts on the property aren't just stories, they're real, talkative, and not shy about stirring up trouble. Directed by Neil Jordan and featuring Daryl Hannah, Peter O'Toole, and Liam Neeson, the movie blended slapstick chaos with romance in a wild, unpredictable mix. It wasn't a smash like his earlier hits, but it showed he wasn't scared to jump into weird, quirky projects with bold filmmakers. By the end of the 80s, Steve Guttenberg had starred in some of the decade's biggest and most beloved films. His face was everywhere. On magazine covers, talk shows, posters, TV specials, everywhere Hollywood wanted attention. But even with all the fame, something strange was happening. Something subtle but real. When people talked about Police Academy, they remembered the sound effects legend. When they mentioned Cocoon, they praised the older cast. Short Circuit belonged to Johnny Five. Three Men and a Baby was an ensemble piece where all three guys shared the spotlight. Guttenberg was always the steady presence. The nervous one, the sweet one, the reliable guy who held the whole story together. And that image wasn't fake. It was exactly who he was. In a 1988 interview, he even explained that while his co-stars Ted Danson and Tom Selleck liked to go out and enjoy the nightlife, he was built differently. His idea of fun was simple. My idea of a good time was watching sports and eating pizza. Ted and Tom are older than I am, but in actuality, I felt the oldest. He knew people saw him as the clean-cut, dependable one, and he didn't run from it. I don't feel cornered by being Mr. Nice Guy. At this point in my career, being Mr. Nice Guy got me where I am now. When the 90s hit, Steve Guttenberg's clean, friendly vibe suddenly lost its shine overnight. Hollywood wanted edge, grit, and complicated heroes, the total opposite of his easygoing charm. He shifted into family movies like Zeus and Roxanne, and light comedies like It Takes Two, and even stepped behind the camera to direct the 2002 adaptation of P.S. Your Cat is Dead. But none of these projects caught real heat. Meanwhile, guys like Ted Danson, Tom Selleck, and Ron Howard kept cruising into bigger, richer opportunities, while Guttenberg slowly turned into a running joke, a shortcut phrase for that nostalgic 80s guy. His most talked-about role in the modern era ended up being his appearance as a goofy, exaggerated version of himself on Party Down, which leaned right into that self-aware humor. He also popped up on Dancing with the Stars and took roles in wild sci-fi TV movies like Lavalantula and Sharknado 4, projects that openly played into his retro pop culture status. Then came one of his boldest choices. He played a very dark villain on Veronica Mars, a character he described clearly as someone who I despise. He embraced the weight of the performance, letting himself go fully into that darkness. But he also admitted that his long-standing hesitation to take characters like that probably cost him tough roles earlier in his career. As he put it, "I like being nice, but as an actor, people mistake niceness for weakness." Through all of this shifting and fading spotlight, his father Stanley stayed his rock. But then Stanley was diagnosed with kidney failure, and Steve started driving nearly 400 miles every week from Los Angeles to Phoenix so he could take his father to dialysis. For him, it wasn't even a question. He always said, "My dad was always there for me." He talked openly about how deeply he loved his father, saying, "I was in love with my dad. He was my best friend." Stanley passed away in July 2022 at age 89, and Steve was holding him, performing CPR, desperate to keep him alive. Later, he admitted, "I probably let him go a year later. It's hard to believe that he's gone." That raw grief shaped his creative work. He poured those emotions into Time to Thank, Caregiving for My Hero, and created a one-man stage play, Tales from the Guttenberg Bible. When he performs it, he says, "When I perform this play, I'm talking to my dad." Despite that lifelong bond, Steve never became a father himself, something he has spoken about openly and respectfully. Today, he lives in Pacific Palisades, California, the same neighborhood he's called home for 37 years. He married CBS reporter Emily Smith in 2019, and though their marriage ended in 2025, he handled it quietly and respectfully, just like everything else in his life. Then came January 2025, when devastating wildfires tore through the Palisades, forcing nearly 200 drivers to abandon their cars and run from the flames. Steve jumped straight into action, moving cars out of the way, clearing paths for emergency crews, and helping neighbors escape the smoke and fire. No cameras, no ego, just pure instinct to help. On Instagram, where he has close to 500,000 followers, his bio simply reads, "Actor, writer, sandwich maker." His posts are calm, thoughtful reflections on life, kindness, and gratitude. Classic Guttenberg energy, even online. He hasn't built some fake persona. He really is the nice guy, always has been. Casting directors have long said there are maybe 10 actors that can play every role. And he once pointed out that Tom Selleck could have played Indiana Jones, and that Silence of the Lambs was originally developed for Gene Hackman. His philosophy was simple. A great character is a great character, and I just think it is sort of how the gods go. He learned early on that luck plays a massive role in Hollywood, and instead of fighting that truth, he accepted it with grace. He understood that his rise came from being in the right place at the right time, and that no actor stays the center of the spotlight forever. When new faces took over, he didn't get bitter. He didn't try to claw back fame, and he didn't let resentment settle in. He just kept working when something inspired him. He wrote books, performed on stage, and shared his own reflections with nearly 500,000 people online, becoming a warm, calming presence in a noisy world. Today, at 66 years old, Steve Guttenberg is still known as one of the most gracious, humble people to come out of the 80s Hollywood machine. The kindness he showed on screen wasn't a performance. It was his real nature, shaped by Stanley, the father who taught him that the best part of life is staying curious about what comes next. And Steve has lived that idea for nearly 5 decades, never clinging to the past, always ready for the next chapter with quiet confidence and a steady heart. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.